Thank you all very much for coming. Welcome to the Oakland Public Library. My name is Ian. Please join me in welcoming Chef Crystal Wahpepah. Her new book is entitled A Feather and a Fork. Mrs. Dalloway's is in the back selling copies. Please pick one up. Hopefully we can get Crystal to sign them afterwards, and we'll have a Q&A afterwards as well. But thank you so much for joining us, Crystal. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So I've spent some time with your book. I think I was the first person to check it out of the Oakland Public Library, and a huge theme in your book is obviously history and tradition. Can you start by telling us some of the history of your people, the Kickapoo from Oklahoma, and more specifically your family?
Oh, definitely. That's when I was writing the book, I thought it would be only proper to start off that way, and so I started off just talking about the history. I'm a Kickapoo tribal member from Oklahoma, but also at the same time. We originated over in the Illinois area and relocated where we got federally recognized in Kansas, Oklahoma, down to Texas. And so I really wanted to talk about that history because it also it pertains to food and how our food got lost or how it came to be and how we have it on the plate to this day. But coming from a tribe that is very private and very traditional in ceremony, I really wanted to move really in that way in the book. And so when you read the book, you'll see a lot how a lot of our people, how we got relocated, but how we're not on our original land. So, but then I really did dive deep into it and talk about the beautiful of the foods that we traded along the way.
Yeah, and I realize we probably should have begun with a land acknowledgement. We are on the unceded land of the Ohlone people here in Oakland at the Oakland Public Library. So your family came to Oakland. I think this is a history that a lot of folks don't know about it. Can you tell us a little bit about that history? Yes,
and so my mother came here when she was at the age 12, and so my grandfather just so happened to be in the Navy, but during that time, in the 1955, when the Relocation Act that was happening, my family came here to Oakland, but a lot of the history where it comes from, my grandfather was in the Navy, and pretty much my grandparents had 6 kids, so they pretty much all followed where it came and where my grandfather was in the Navy. And so a lot during the Relocation Act, a lot of Native people were coming from different reservations looking for jobs, especially here in the Oakland area or here in the Bay Area. And so this is where a lot of the history, I kind of dive deep into the history where it comes into that Relocation Act and where a lot of Natives were brought here into the Bay Area are assuming to be here for jobs, and a lot were coming from reservations, and then from there, especially with my grandparents, they end up staying and they end up buying a house in Hayward, but at the same time there is a place called Intertribal Friendship House. It was founded in 1955, which is on 5th Avenue, right on International. And a lot of people would come and to share foods, and different tribes would come and have corn, or they'll have maybe not so much game meats that you see in my book, but a lot of food like cornmeal, or for instance like traditional soups. And pretty much like in any cultural area, a lot of people, they tend to share a lot of different foods, and so this was kind of like a community hub where a lot of access to get jobs, a lot of access to have food. For instance, one thing that I love about the Intertribal Friendship House, they still feed the homeless, and they still feed Native families till this day since 1955. It was on a Wednesday, but now it's on Thursday, so they do it every Thursday.
So, and the Intertribal Friendship House was a pretty large part of your childhood growing up, and you described it as a constant. Can you talk about some of the other parts of Oakland, your history in Oakland? We're the public library, we talk about the history in Oakland all the time. Like, where'd you grow up? Where'd you eat?
Well, me being born and raised here in Oakland, of course, I grew up, but I traveled a lot as a child, and at the same time, I was born right on East 14th on 27th Avenue. I went to elementary school. I went to Lazier Elementary School. I went to Hawthorne. I went to a lot of schools here in Oakland, but of me growing up, especially at the Intertribal, it really kind of, it was one of my safe havens, I guess you can say, especially growing up here in Oakland and me growing up as a mixed race. My mother's Native American and my father is African American, but also at the same time, I really explored that where I was really very fortunate to have that cultural tie, and where cooking, a lot of traditional cooking took place on summer programs, a lot of dancing, a lot of beading, where it comes into that. And I would hear, like my grandfather at the time, his first language is the Kickapoo language, and he would always tell us, like, pass me the salt, or give me this, give me that in Kickapoo. And those are the things that you hear at the Intertribal, like if they're Navajo or if they're Lakota, you would hear them speak in their language. So it was something that was automatically natural, but then also at the same time where I knew where everyone came from, but then you realize when you really go on the outs, especially here in the Bay Area, you realize, wow, we're kind of different, but how can we be so different when we're from here?
Right. So in addition to Oakland, you spent some time in the Eureka Arcata area, the Hoopa Valley Reservation. Can you tell us some about that part of your childhood?
Oh, yeah.
It's food related as
yeah,
well, of course.
A lot. All of it's food. I must have been hungry, or I like to eat. One of those. But at the time, so my aunt, she moved to the reservation in Hoopa, and my aunt and my mom were very close, and so my mom always followed. So she took us to the reservation in Hoopa, and so it was, of course, totally different from Oakland. You have the forest, you have the redwoods, and so I would run around a lot. And I have one of my aunts, she's one of our cooks in our family, and so she was like, hey, if you go pick the blackberry, I'll make you a pie. And and I got all excited, and so I would go out there. And if you've ever been in Humboldt, you can see like the redwood forest, and so we lived in a country part, I guess you would say, but I would run around all through there, and I would find like pine nuts, elderberry, huckleberry, blackberries, and I was just talk to the berries and pick the berries and bring them to my aunt so we can make a pie.
It's amazing. We had a Palestinian American chef here recently, and she talked about how food is political, food is inherently political. I think a big part of your book and a big part of your work is sort of the politics behind food, and specifically this concept of food sovereignty. Can you explain that and your work in that?
Oh, definitely. So I'm going to say dive deep a lot, just because I really wanted my book to stand out in a different way. It's pretty much my journey as an indigenous chef, and the more I dug, the more I found. And this is where, of course, I come from a family that are activists, but I realized at an early age how I was an activist where it comes into food sovereignty and where it comes into the native foodways. So I really dive deep in there, and I really explain about the history that really nobody really talks about, especially in a cookbook. Nobody really talks about the historical trauma. Nobody really talks about the colonization, how we were all removed from our land and how we were removed from our food. So I really want to implement that in there in a way where it was my story. And so where it comes into food sovereignty, it all kind of depends how you look at it. For me personally, I always say this, it's really a university word, but honestly, it's food is medicine, but it just depends how you approach it. Like right now, I'm currently chef in resident at a food sovereignty lab at Cal Poly in Humboldt, and so, when you're teaching university students about food, native foodways, and you're teaching them about food sovereignty, I'm really teaching them, especially for the next generation, how we approach food in a holistic approach, or how we approach food as our medicine, because this is how we live, but how can we live when our land and our water is damaged? And, and it's kind of like how the book moves in waves, where it comes into the food sovereignty part, and I kind of touch base on what's going on, especially what's going on in the pipeline, what's going on in our water, what's going on in our soil, but how can we grow these beautiful foods, but we have all these other problems.
Right. Yeah, I think, one really amazing thing about your book is that there's essays throughout it about particular Native organizations or just concepts behind your work. And one of them that really struck me was you had a segment about an organization called the Cultural Conservancy. And in that section, you noted that 60% of the world's seed stock is controlled by 4 companies. Mm-hmm. And mm-hmm. I knew some of this. I'm familiar with Monsanto, mm-hmm. and can you explain how that works? How can corporations it's capitalism, right? But how is it that corporations can come to control something as basic and as ancient as seeds and food?
Well, for me, what better way, especially our history, is to take people's food. And so where it comes into the control, especially of the control of the seeds, but now they kind of tell you, we don't know if the seed is good enough to grow. It might affect, where it comes into the land or the other, like it might affect your corn, for instance. But a lot where it comes into, especially with traditional foods, and what I found, because I'm also a seed keeper, and I love seed keepers because they have the most beautiful stories, and they have the most, they're our protectors. And what I mean by that is there's seeds that we're not even aware of, but also at the same time where it comes into the indigenous people, we have these seeds, but then also the government also controls these seeds. So we can dive really deep into it, or we can go kind of moderate of the seeds. But with Cultural Conservancy, what I love, and how they partner with different seed keepers all throughout the nation, and they just pretty much talk about the environment and what can we grow. And I just so happened to work with them for almost 15 years. I've been working with them, but they've been around since 1976. And the more and more I dug deep, the more and more I found my tribal seeds, I found my family seeds. It's just pretty much like a little secret society of seed keepers. And if you go, just hang out with some farmers, you'll find a lot of different kind of seeds. But a lot of the seeds are making its way to different, especially native-led or native-run farms, where, for me personally, it's a human right for us to grow these seeds. For instance, I partner with Hair and Shadow, which is Cultural Conservancy. So it's 10 acres. We grow our squash there, and at the same time, I believe that we do native foodways there. So we're pretty much in our 7th year, but also if you ever been to the restaurant, we give our seeds back, and then we replant them so we can have that turning point, and really that's how our food should be really grown, and how our food should be really given, where it comes into giving it back to the land and bringing it right back. But I find that growing the squash, it really tells its story, because that's like the mother's belly, and she's protecting the babies, and that's the seeds.
Related to that in the seeds, there's a section in your book where you talk about your supplier for acorn flour, and in the recipes, if folks don't know, you'll find that there is very little wheat, And this was not something I was aware of. I didn't realize that like wheat was not a large part of indigenous food. And a lot of amaranth, a lot of quinoa, tapioca flour. And can you tell us about sort of maybe like the monoculture of wheat and like your resistance to it and your, you know, it's, yeah, like.
Well, well, my resistance to it, I love it. No. But
I mean, there, you know, it's in there, there's some wheat in there. It's not completely devoid of wheat.
I really wanted when I was doing the work and doing the recipes, I really wanted to move in moderation because I felt like we should eat in moderation where it comes into the wheat. But then I also wanted to take it pre-contact. Pre-contact, I really wanted to show how different people, like from South America all the way up into Mexico, up to North America, would make these grains and use these grains as flour. So I really wanted to show people how can they eat differently where it comes into creating all these different dishes. And this is something that has been done, you know, for thousands of years. And so I said, okay, instead of adding the wheat flour to the acorn, let's do the acorn, you know. And I can go on the history. Of course, acorn is a California native. It's one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen, I've ever tasted. And it's like my people are corn and squash and bean people, but they are acorn people. And it's such a huge honor to get one of our supplies from a California native person, that he comes from that integrity, that background where I come from, where it comes with native foods. And so it's community first. He provides the community first and then us. So sometimes if you come to the restaurant, you're not always going to see acorn on the menu. That's just because it depends how the harvest. And we just so happen to get a really good harvest, but last year there wasn't that good of a harvest on there. But also at the same time, when we're utilizing, especially I really encourage everyone to cook for the cookbook. I mean, I have a lot of cookbook, and I was just telling her, I have a lot of cookbooks, but it really, if you eat in moderation and kind of substitute, like the tapioca flour, for instance, a lot of people till this day still uses the amaranth flour, things like that. We grow amaranth at the farm, and we actually grind it up and use the grains for it, you know. Those are the most beautiful things that you can eat and you can feel different. And so, especially in the season, how they're grown and how they're provided in the season. So I really wanted to showcase and really highlight those things, that it could be done when it comes to pre-contact and what's going on in our foods today.
Right. Yeah, and in the book there you will find there's a extensive section in the back of resources and places that you can order, primarily indigenous run organizations or companies as well. I do have a question kind of related to the food, but a lot of your dishes in the cookbook are what some folks might consider you know, inspired by Mexican cuisine or you know, related. And I realize that borders are a construct and people have been moving back and forth from long before those lines existed. But I'm curious if some of that inspiration comes to you from Oakland or in the Mexican American community here, or if it's all from Oklahoma and indigenous groups, or if it's some of both.
Well, I'm going to say some of both, just because I'm Kickapoo, so I have dual citizenship. Where it comes into Mexico, I only can enter El Paso area, but I only can go through there. But also how the food trade, how it takes place. But of course, you know, growing up here in the Bay Area has a lot to, it influenced me a lot. But also at the same time, we have different Kickapoo names for these dishes, and so it looks like a tostada, but it's not called a tostada. But to you, if you came in my restaurant, it looks like a tostada, so why not call it a tostada? But then that's why we have the Kickapoo language name on there for what it's called.
Right. Okay, so yeah, going kind of switching directions, but going back to your history, can we talk a little bit about the restaurant, your journey getting there, how you got there, where it started?
Oh, wow. My journey, wow. My
Take as long as you want.
yes, and I take you guys on that journey. When you read through the book, I kind of take you on this little indigenous food journey. But actually, where it comes into it is probably I was at the age 6 or 7 years old, where I loved cooking, but I loved cooking with native ingredients, and that was like my happy space, my happy place. Just because I had a grandfather that would hunt, and he would take me, and we would break down a deer. I've been really, really fortunate to have those things, especially where it comes into foraging in the land, but then also coming back here to Oakland. And so you see, you live in like two different kind of worlds. And so I automatically, right away, I seen those two different worlds. And I loved being on the land world part. And so my journey as an indigenous chef is really pretty much, I have my uncle, Bill Wahpepah. We would always go to Alcatraz for Thanksgiving, and at the time, it wasn't 1,000 people, it was like 30 people. We were just on this little ferry. And at the same time, we would go there and they would talk about human rights, and they would talk about what's going on in the world, and especially where it comes into native health care, housing, things like that. But then we would go to La Pena and Berkeley, and we would go there and we would eat, but we're talking about native history, and we're talking about what's going on in native country, but we never had the food. So at a very young age, I seen that right away. Wait a minute, what's grandma's corn stew? Wait a minute, I seen that right away. And so I loved cooking, so I always, actually, my Aunt Carol, she would bring us here to Oakland Library, and we would do different kind of art. So this is where this is where culinary art comes in. We would do different arts here in the children's area, and then from there, when I decided I wanted to become a native chef, but I knew what I had to do, and that's pretty much move back to Oklahoma and really learn from the land and learn from the elders. And so that's what I did. But then coming back here, I traveled a lot. I still do. Like, I'll be in Oklahoma in a couple of days. But I travel a lot, but I'm taking you guys on this real food journey here. And as the business part, but as the indigenous chef part, it's pretty much, I always say, I didn't go looking for it, it found me. And so what I mean by that is I was really fortunate to cook in the community. I just so happened to be passed down where it comes into traditional foods in my family, and my family pretty much passed away through diabetes, heart disease, cancer. And so people were coming to me and asking me to make these traditional foods, and I didn't know at the time I was one of those keepers. And so I started doing it with the community and start making it for the community, and then I wanted to know more. So I would come to this library and look for books, and there was only, I swear, like 3 Native books, and maybe one of them were written by a Native American. And at the same time, I was like, wait a minute, I know there's more food, there's more to it. So I would go upstairs on the back of the wall, and I would just close my eyes and go into the Native American history and pick a book and read. I read a lot of books and read the books and found out what they were eating. And so that's how I became a native chef. But then more, I start partnering a lot up with where it comes into food sovereignty movements, where it comes into indigenous food movements, and I would be fortunate to be chosen as scholarships and to travel all through the nation and learn how to tap maple or how to break down a buffalo and all those kind of things. So it's a lot of self taught, but self-education, just because we don't have a culinary school for native students. But also, I did put myself through culinary school in San Francisco, and I wanted the tools to learn how to, with the knife skills, and I needed those tools at the same time. So I combined those two worlds up, and then from there, one thing went to another, and then I was on Food Network. And then the next thing, I am at the White House cooking. There's a lot of things where I catered for almost 16 years before I launched Wahpepah's Kitchen, the restaurant. And so at the same time, when I opened up in COVID. I wouldn't recommend it, but I lost my commercial kitchen in downtown Oakland on 24th Street. And so I know this is all I know is my hands and my heart. So, when you're when you've been a chef and you've been a cook and this is all you got to do what you got to do. Especially, I was a single mother at that time. My daughter was in school, and so I knew a lot of different chefs, and I was offered the Fruitvale area, and so I just really wanted the commercial kitchen space. I didn't want the restaurant, but I developed this bar called the Wild Rice Bar, and I would sell it all throughout the country. And I would receive these beautiful letters from people and talking about how alone they felt and how they're having this wild rice bar and they're connecting. And so at the time when I was negotiating in the Fruitvale area, I just had this one moment and I felt like, I think I'm going to do it because people really need to connect with the food. And so that's what I did. And so I opened up Wahpepah's Kitchen. I did not know the amount of attention that we would receive. We're only open for 3 months, got nominated for James Beard. We're like media crazy. People are down the block just coming to eat the food. But that is kind of like where I feel like life is a circle. All those relationships that I built all throughout Native country, it all came full toe in Wahpepah's Kitchen.
It's really beautiful. Congratulations as well. It's amazing. So it is in Fruitvale, right there at the BART station. If you have not been, please check it out. It's incredible. And it's you have had a connection to the Fruitvale neighborhood for a long time. How, like, you've seen it change for better and for worse. Can you sort of describe your relationship to Oakland and that neighborhood and over time?
Well, I always would love Oakland because, one, not just because I was born here, but it's who I am, and who I am just as a mother and a woman and a chef and a person, but also at the same time, I've seen a lot of my share, of course, especially opening up at the end of COVID in the Fruitvale, and it was kind of like, ooh, what did I get myself into, But at the same time, people still came. So wherever there's good food, people will go. It don't matter. But for real. I'm even like, hurry, eat your food. No. But I think we're in a mix of, like, we have our ups and downs. And right now, I feel like we've been really down, but I see just in the Fruitvale area, and I see that we're moving on up. And I feel like we're going through something. I can't explain it, but at the same time, and how I know that is because I see different people from around the world comes into my restaurant, and they all have suitcases. And I always like saying, "Where are you from?" Or, like, for instance, she came from LA just to hear me. Yeah. And those kind of those are the special moments, and those are the things where it makes you want to continue to go and to thrive. Like, yeah, I think I'll do my at least one more year. Hey. Those are the things. But I'm put on this earth for a reason, and that is to really make a difference for the next generation. I want them to walk by in Fruitvale at the BART station to say, oh, oh yeah, I know where a native restaurant is. I could have never said that in my generation. You can never say that. And there's only less on this hand of Native American restaurants all through the nation. And that's, you want to say that's sad, but in a way it's not, because of our history and where we've been, and it's showing where we're thriving and where we're going as Native people.